Oh, that's why I can't.
Busy again now.
Okay. Thank you.
Okay, let's see. Rhonda, do we have a quorum? I can't see. Well, let me see. Sorry about that.
We have,
Let me scroll down. I see. Miranda's.
you and Miranda.
That's it?
That's it so far.
And
It's
Dan.
Okay, Dan is joining us now.
Also Lori and Jim Wagner.
It's coming in. Let's see.
7:23.
Okay,
Adams.
so we have all expected board members.
Okay, we have quorum.
Yes.
Okay. Good deal. Well, good morning, everyone. I'm going to call the Mountain Lion Board meeting for January 20th, 2021 to order. And at this time, I'm going to ask our clerk, Rhonda, to take our roll call, please.
Thank you, Chair Peru and members of the board. City of Flagstaff, Adam Shimoni.
Present.
Thank you. Coconino County, Liz Archuleta is not available today, so excused. City of Flagstaff, Miranda Sweet.
Present.
Thank you. NAU, Dan Okoli.
Present.
Thank you. CCC, Steve Peru.
Present.
Thank you. And we have members of the staff in the training room and on Zoom from their offices. And we are potentially expecting maybe a guest from CTE, Kate. I'm not sure if she's for sure joining or not. Kylie McCord, possibly. And we do have Scott Holcomb, our Mountain Lion attorney on the line as well.
Okay. Thank you.
Thank you.
We're going to go to Sam Shore for our safety minute today.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board. The January safety minute is about winter driving. The winter season brings cold temperatures and often severe weather conditions that create many hazards for individuals working in these conditions. Even if you work indoors, winter weather still poses many hazards for you, such as driving into work in bad weather. It is important to recognize and address the hazards winter brings with it. Sorry, I'm having to scroll down.
Okay.
One of the main issues winter poses in many parts of the country is poor driving conditions. According to the Department of Transportation, Winter weather conditions are responsible for over 192,000 injuries. Sorry, Heather, Mike's screen keeps cutting out.
No worries. We can just, you get to wrap there, then we can kind of come back. Are you there, Sam? Okay.
Can you hear me?
Yeah. Can you hear me now?
Sorry, my internet's cutting out. I'm sorry, I apologize.
We appreciate it. I think we got the message though. Thank you, Sam.
Okay.
We're going to proceed. But again, you showed us today with winter weather being here today, how timely your message is today. So thank you very, very much. You can control the weather, so leave it to Sam Short too. He's got it. He's a man of many trades. So I want to go on to our next item is welcoming new board members, but I want to pause for a moment to make a couple comments in general. Of course, we all know how important a strong team is in any organization. And I think we've all been involved in various teams throughout our careers where you could really see and feel the strength of the organization based on the talent within the organization. And so today I'm going to just call out in particular Heather Dalnowen. So Heather just completed, and she was awarded on January 16th of 2021, her certificate for 19 years of service. And so it's important to just say congratulations to Heather and to let her know how important she is to us. And I can go back, Heather and I kind of grew up together at Coconino County. So that was kind of a cool thing to watch her, of course, come to the county and grow. And then as the service, became its own entity and organization through what we have today, and to see Heather transition there. And, she's always kind of been that stability, that rock, if you will. And so I just want to say congratulations, and we're very much in appreciation and grateful to you, Heather, for being part of Mountain Lion throughout the years. And so thank you very, very much.
Thank
Speech, anything?
you. No, I love my job. I'm glad I've had the opportunities I've had. And I'm looking forward to many more years working with this team and this agency.
Good deal. Well, congratulations again. So thanks so much. We're going to move on to our membership. And so we have two new members today, and I want to introduce, and we of course know these individuals well through other circles, but Mr. Adam Shimoni, City of Flagstaff City Council, and Ms. Miranda Sweet, Flagstaff City Council as well. So I'm going to start with Adam. If you can make a few comments to just let everyone know you're back in a different role from the alternate to the paid seats at the table. So
he's back. Thank you. Hi everybody, great to be with you all. I'm so excited to be a board member with you all. I've gotten the pleasure to watch you all from a distance as an alternate. Although I wasn't at every meeting, the meetings I did attend, I did appreciate the conversations and the leadership of the board with the team to move the Mountain Lion agenda forward. And I'm just very honored to have been appointed to the board, and I'm excited to be part of this team and to work on the great things that we're all working on. I think that Mountain Lion has a lot of great projects in line and have a lot of great momentum. And I guess I just feel fortunate to be involved at this particular time to see some of these larger projects through for the community that we all love and cherish. So thank you, Chair, and thank you, everybody. I'm very much looking forward to this upcoming year.
great. Thanks so much, Adam. Miranda, you want to say a few words? You can turn your video. There you go.
Thank you. Do you want the video on all the time, or?
Well, we ask if, as you're making comments, if you can turn your video on, that's great. But otherwise, you can go back to turn it off.
I didn't want you to think that I was ignoring the screen.
It's your fault.
I am honored to be here. I have an interesting love for Mountain Lion, and I guess I'm realizing it more or I started realizing it when I ran my campaign. My two sons have ridden the bus for years, one of them to fall and back. And I'm just excited to see the future projects, be part of the team, and really have a voice for, or be part of the voice for where we move forward. So thank you for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Thanks. It's good to have you at the table. Good to work with you. I also want to, before we go to the next item, acknowledge Mr. Jim McCarthy. So Jim has been a member of the Mountain Lion Board for several years, and I think within the rotation of assignments at the city council level and similar things at Coconino County Board of Supervisors, Jim is going to be doing some other work and some other committees, but we do want to acknowledge Jim's contributions and comments and wisdom. And so at a future meeting, we'll be calling him back so we can roast and toast him appropriately. And so to Mr. Jim McCarthy, we thank you so much. At Coconino County on their side, we have new membership from the Board of Supervisors. Liz Archuleta will be joining the board at Mountain Lion along with Patrice Horstman. And so, of course, Liz representing District 2, and she actually just recently transitioned from the chairmanship of the Board of Supervisors transitioned to Matt Ryan. And so Liz, of course, is going to be working with Mountain Lion and other county committees as well. And of course, Patrice Horstman, newly elected in District 1. And so we welcome both of them to the board roster. And so thank you very much to both of them. They had other commitments today. And I know that I sat in on their Board of Supervisors meeting yesterday. And so there's a lot of logistics happening with COVID. And so hats off to them for their good work there too. So again, we'll go on. Any other comments from staff or board members? Okay, we'll go on to the next item are the approval of the minutes from the December 11th, 2020 meeting. If you've had an opportunity to read them, I'll entertain a motion and a second for acceptance.
Chair Prue, I move that we approve the December 11th, 2020 minutes.
Thank you. Is there a second to Adam's motion?
I second that.
Thank you. So the motion is made by Adam, the second by Miranda to approve the minutes for December 11th, 2020. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Okay. Any opposed? Hearing none, motion passes. And so we'll go on to that. The next item is our consent agenda. And so again, all matters under consent agenda are considered by the board to be routine and will be enacted on by a single motion with approving the consent agenda. If we have to discuss a particular item, we can remove it from consent and we can consider that separately. And all items on the consent agenda with financial impact have been budgeted. And so there is one item on the consent calendar, consideration of consider the consent agreement with Carter Oil Company Incorporated. And that's the only item on consent. Is there any other discussion? If not, we'll entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
I just wanted to mention, I just find it funny, the Israel boycott provision number 13 in the contract is just something that always cracks me up when I see that. And yeah, anyways, I'm from Israel, so I feel like I can say that, but I move that we approve our consent agenda, Chair.
Thank you, Adam. Is there a second to the motion?
I second.
Thank you, Miranda. So there's a motion and a second. Is there any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor, please say aye.
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 Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you very much. So the next item, starting with item 7, are discussion action items. And the next item is review of the 2021 meeting date calendar and approval of the dates for the year. And so, Rhonda, do you want to go over those with us?
Yes, thank you, Chair Prue. Let me get my video on here. Okay, so each year we review the current meeting dates for the rest of this fiscal year, 2021, and then we try to approve the following year. meeting dates, so for fiscal year 2022 as well. NAU, CCC, and FUSD currently have spring break scheduled from March 15th through the 19th. Per their respective websites, I looked those up. And so we just need to decide if we're going to keep our meeting on March 17th if we have quorum. And as well, the County Board of Supervisors usually takes a spring recess where they hold no meetings. So I don't know if we want to discuss this now or review FY 2022 as in addition, and then make any changes or approvals at the end.
Okay. Rhonda, would it be possible for us to just go ahead and say that instead of the 17th, we would be meeting the following Wednesday, the 24th in March?
Should we make sure we're going to have a quorum for that date?
Okay.
I'll just ask each member that's present. Adam, can you meet on March 24th at 10 a.m.?
I think either work for me.
Okay.
Okay.
And I'm guessing, Chair Peru, that you have already cleared that on your calendar?
Yeah, the 24th is fine.
Okay. And Director Sweet?
I believe both dates will work for me.
Okay. And Director Okoli?
Dan, does the 24th look good for you? Okay, he might have had to step.
How it works, yeah.
Okay.
It works.
24th is good.
Okay.
And then we can go back and talk with our county reps as well. You can do that offline.
Yes, I will do that. Okay, great. I will make that change for that.
Got it. Thank you so much. And with that, though, can we adopt the meeting date calendar as presented with the exception of March? We'll be looking at meeting on the 24th instead of the 17th. Is that appropriate, Rhonda?
Yes, and actually, I don't know that we need to approve that if everyone is agreeable to changing to that date. The FY 2022 meeting dates, I don't know if everyone had a chance to look them over. Staff is proposing a December recess. And in looking at the March of 2022, possibly changing that to the 4th Wednesday as well, if instead of having it the 3rd Wednesday to coincide with spring break. So if you want to discuss that briefly.
I think 2022 is a little bit further out there. I think if we can look at 2021 and then kind of look at that, I don't know if we need to look at adopting dates for 2022 today, unless there's a compelling need.
It's completely up to the board.
Yeah.
We have generally approved them and then they get on your calendar and then they can be changed as needed. It's up to you though.
So for 2022, are we changing the day of the month in terms of because right now we're
It's the 3rd Wednesday.
the 3rd Wednesday? Is that remaining the same for 2022?
Yes, unless you want to make changes.
No, I would say we can go with it.
Did you want to go ahead and change the date for next March of 2022 or wait and see?
We can just wait and see.
Almost always falls within spring break.
That's fine. Why don't we just say this is in March, with any time in our meeting in March falls within spring break, we'll look at the following Wednesday to do it.
Okay.
Okay. So then we can kind of go with that calendar. And we can save a motion. So is that good for you, Rhonda?
Yeah, I just need a vote to approve them
Oh, we
with
do
that
vote?
change, if that's okay.
Okay, so we just wanted a motion and a second to adopt the meeting calendar for 2021 and 2022, making note of the fact for the March month, we will be meeting the Wednesday after spring break. Is there a motion to that effect?
I motion that we change the dates for March 22.
I second.
Thank you. And so we'll have a motion from Miranda and a second from Dan to, I'm going to go ahead and kind of, if you would, let me broaden your motion to say that we've adopted the calendar with those changes to the March dates as we discussed.
Thank you.
All right. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Hearing none, I think we're good to go. And again, if our county partners have a big conflict with regard to anything on their end, we can bring us back for discussion, okay? Okay, from there, we're going to go on to the next item, and this is consider adoption of the Title VI program, and staff recommends the board approve the updated Title VI Civil Rights Policy and Program and authorize CO manager, general manager to approve clerical corrections in the future. So again, this would be clerical corrections. I'm going to turn this over to Kate to present the item.
Thank you, Chairman and members of the board. Kate Morley, I'm the Deputy General Manager. And next slide, Rhonda. So a little bit of background about Title VI. It is a requirement of the Federal Transit Administration, FTA, to receive federal funds. And we've adopted Title VI programs in 2009, 2012, 2015, and 2018. There is a requirement that it's updated every 3 years. And so now in 2021, we're looking at that update again. The steps are that the board's considering it today, and then we do submit it to FTA, who will have to review and approve it as well. And as a reminder, these are really minimum requirements for meeting Title VI, and that we can and do exceed them on projects like the Downtown Connection Center or 5-year plan. So it's really setting that minimum standard by which FTA will review our compliance. And for your information, I should have started with this. Title VI is requirements to not be discriminating on the basis of race or origin, country of origin. So you'll see that's the tailored, audience of the plan. Next slide. So what is in the plan? These are all required components by FTA. We have to just show how we notice our Title VI program to the public. We have to show how people can file complaints in case they have one. We also have to share a list of complaints we've received over the past 3 years. We include a public participation plan that we actually work with MetroPlan on so that those efforts are coordinated. LEP is limited English proficiency. So we talk about how we're going to reach out to audiences that may not speak English. We also have to share with FTA the racial breakdown of our committees that are selected by Mountain Line. So not our board membership, because those are really appointed seats to member agencies. But when we, for example, have a community committee for the Downtown Connection Center or a community committee for the 5-year plan, we need to show FTA that we're having a good representation on those committees. There's also a section to talk about how you provide oversight of subrecipients. Mountain Line does not have any subrecipients, so we just state that in the plan. We also need to talk about how Title VI is done in the location and siting of our major facilities, so not small bus stops, but how are we selecting sites like the DCC? How are we selecting sites like the campus bus storage facility to ensure there aren't any disproportionate impacts to certain populations? And then finally, service standards to make sure that, for example, our bus stop amenities and the service we're providing are also equally distributed around the community. Next slide. So our changes since 2018 are fairly minor, I would say. We've made a lot of clerical changes, updates to the website, changing everything from NAPDA over to Mountain Line, things we had not done since rebranding. We also did move the Title VI responsibilities that were previously held by the administrative director, a position we no longer have. So we've moved those over to the Deputy General Manager, my role at the organization. We did add a new section on the construction of facilities because between the Downtown Connection Center and campus bus storage facility, we are considering development that triggers needing to do Title VI, where previously we didn't have anything on the books that would have done that. And then we've made minor changes to align some of those service standards with what's in our latest plan. So for example, I believe it was almost 2 years ago now, we adopted the transit guidelines talking about the distribution of transit amenities like shelters and logo stops across the system. So we've updated to make sure that's all consistent with our latest planning efforts. Next slide. So the action in front of you today is to approve the Title VI program, allowing the CEO to make those clerical modifications needed over the next several years. And then also we have scoped into our 5-year plan update to do a more holistic look at changes. So especially some of those service changes, we do want to make sure that we're providing a very equitable system. And so I have asked the consultants to look at that. Depending upon their recommendations, we may come back to change the Title VI plan before it's required in 2024. But if the changes are minor or clerical, then it may not be back in front of the board until that date that it's required by FTA in 3 years. And with that, I'm happy to answer any questions.
Okay. Board comments, questions, observations on this item? Adam?
Here, I'll start us off. Okay, I do have, thank you for the presentation. Very interesting reading about Title VI. I'm doing my numerology correctly. My question is in terms of number 4 on the document. It says a public participation plan that includes an outreach plan to engage minority and limited English proficient populations. Can you speak to that a little bit and let me know what that plan looks like?
Yeah, so we actually coordinate with Metro Plan on this item. We reference their plan because there are certain things that are required, like the TIP table. That's the transportation improvement table that Metro Plan manages for the recipient, the receipt of federal funds or projects receiving federal funds that have public outreach requirements. And so because our TIP table goes into their TIP table, we have to align those processes. However, a couple specifics about what's in there are, we do keep track of who at Mountain Line speaks other languages, and we have a list ready to go in case anyone needs any at any moment. And then we also work with the state to piggyback off of interpretation services so that we always offer that. We are starting a new process to keep track of how many other language encounters we're having. So where language is a barrier to getting the information across, so we can see if we need to be expanding any of those services. Other things we just try to do, it's not really in the plan, but we are trying to make sure that technology is not a barrier to people in terms of remote meetings right now. So on DCC, we actually went and met someone down outside in the Connection Center with a laptop so that they could participate in the meeting, with our coats on and trains passing by. It was quite an interesting experience, but we're definitely trying to do many things and go above and beyond what's in the plan, again, to make sure that we're not excluding anyone from participating in our processes.
Excellent, thank you.
Other questions or comments? Okay, seeing none, we will entertain a motion to approve the item as presented. Is there a motion to this effect from the board?
So moved.
Okay, we have a motion from Adam. Is there a second?
I second.
Thank you, Miranda. So we have a motion by Adam Shimoni, second by Miranda Sweet, to adopt the Title VI program as presented by staff. All those in favor, please say aye. Aye.
Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. The item is approved. Thank you. Next item is going to be consider McConnell Multimodal Improvement Project closeout. And I'll ask Ann Dunno to present this item, please. Thank you.
Thank you, Chair Peru, members of the board. I'm Ann Dunno, the Capital Project Manager here at Mountain Line. And I'm here today to ask the board to formally close out the McConnell Multimodal Improvements Project. This project has some history. It is a partnership project with NAU. I had the opportunity to work with their capital facilities group and NAU Transit, Aaron Stamm, to look at addressing multimodal solutions for the area around SBS, which is our second highest bus stop in our system behind the Downtown Connection Center. This is the heavily used joint use bus stops that NAU Transit and Mountain Line both utilize on Route 10, and then NAU Transit as well. It's a highly congested area, point of access gateway for NAU campus. And this project started out several years ago with a high-level feasibility study that identified a roundabout. Rhonda, would you mind going to the next slide, please? Thank you. And maybe if you don't mind zooming in just a bit.
Zooming in.
Yes, that's better. Maybe it's my screen. So with the initial feasibility study, a roundabout concept was developed, separating modes for bike, pedestrian, and vehicles from the transit hub. With that initial feasibility study, it identified roughly a $7 million construction project. And at that time, in conversations with NAU, the next step was to try to fund this for design and construction. As part of that, Mountain Line actually received a partnership grant for a portion of the design, a 5339 grant that was awarded for approximately $445,000 available for this project. And we proceeded to enter into a IGA with NAU for the next steps on the design. At that time, we brought this forward to MetroPlan Technical Advisory Committee, the TAC, for their review and consideration of how this project could be funded in the future. At that time, back in 2019, the TAC, MetroPlan TAC, advised that we proceed with a traffic study for review to really look more into the impacts to all the various intersections in the area. So then NAU and Mountain Line proceeded to work with WLB Consulting as part of a NAU contract, and they developed the traffic study that was a memo that was a summary that was attached in your documents that identified more in-depth impacts to the ADOT ramp and also the Beulah intersection, and getting really into more of the technical review and what the potential impacts to those intersections would be. And we brought this back to, and at that point we had developed really a go, no go as in terms of how far are we going to be able to take this project, because it is a multi-jurisdictional project between really the city, ADOT, and NAU. And with that, we brought that back to TAC in November of 2020. And at that time, there wasn't partners that were able to come forward with additional design and or construction funding. And so the conversation really was left with, let's review this project as part of the MetroPlan's regional transportation planning process, the RTP as we call it. When that process plays out with MetroPlan over the next year plus, this project potentially could be identified in a long range programming for future funding. And with that, so a little bit back to our closeout aspect of this with NAU is we completed the task one with WLB. And at this time, NAU and Mountain Line have looked at this, and our recommendation is that we pause and close the project until we can find future partnerships. There is remaining grant funds available that Kate Morley will be looking at reallocating, coming back to the board this spring for a reallocation of some of those remaining funds. They are restricted for bus transit way design, so they are somewhat limited in how they can be used, but that will be a forthcoming board action item. And with that, I really open this up to questions from the board.
Thank you very much. Questions on this project? Seeing none, the recommendation from staff is to approve the closeout of the McConnell Multimodal Improvements Project for the information and the reasons stated in the staff presentation. Is there a motion to that effect from the board?
I move to close the project per staff recommendation.
Thank you, Dan. Is there a second to Dan's motion?
I'll second that.
Okay, thank you, Adam. So Dan has made the motion and it's been seconded by Adam to approve the closeout as presented by staff. All those in favor, please say aye.
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 Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, thank you very much, Ann.
Thank you.
Next item is the consider adoption of the zero emissions bus transition plan. And this is, staff recommends the board adopt the zero emissions bus transition plan. And this is presented to us by Busy Collins, our transit planner. Busy?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, members of the board, Busy Collins, transit planner. And I am presenting on the zero emissions bus transition plan. I'll refer to it as ZEB because it's quite a mouthful. The ZEB plan. And so today I'm going to be talking about phase one to summarize and recap for our new board members. I'll be summarizing how the decision was made to move forward into phase two, the implementation plan. And I'll highlight key points of phase two, but I am seeking board approval today for the implementation plan. Thank you, Rhonda, for progressing this slide. And so here's a summary of the ZEB plan. From March to June, staff and CTE, Center for Transportation and the Environment, our vendor, really analyzed how fleet technologies might impact service provision, putting the buses on the road and how the public sees that, emissions and cost. And in June, the board of directors did approve battery electric buses on a policy level, and that enabled staff and CTE to move forward into the implementation or phase two of the plan. And we've been working on that over the last 6 months, just wrapped it up. And so I'll be touching on a few items, but it's quite comprehensive, a 100-page plan for phase two and another 100-page analysis for phase one. So you are welcome to read all of that. It is on our website under reports and studies. Next slide, please, Rhonda. And to summarize phase one, we compared battery electric buses and fuel cell electric buses, so new fleet technologies, with our current hybrid electric buses. And our hybrid electric is diesel run as well, but it has regenerative energy. And the hybrid electric buses work really well for our system. So we just wanted to make sure that we're making the right decision if we're going to move forward with newer green technologies. Next slide, please. And this slide was developed in phase one, and it shows the fleet replacement schedule that we would anticipate replacing buses, bus by bus, with a different technology. And so it would take 12 years over our fleet replacement schedule to replace all 29 buses. And we do have two different kinds of buses, our 35-foot Gilligs and our 60-foot articulated buses. And next slide, please, Rhonda. It should have a little, yes. And so really the ZEB plan was a perfect time to align capital investment with goals. We have this fleet replacement schedule coming up. You do see a couple of buses that are due to be replaced in 2022. We also have the Downtown Connection Center, or DCC, construction scheduled and coming up soon. So again, if we wanted to incorporate any new fleet technologies, now would be the time based on the fleet replacement schedule and the Downtown Connection Center. And then we also had a few planning, a few other plans that would want to incorporate any new fleet technologies. And those include the CASPAR master plan. So here at CASPAR headquarters, the strategic investment plan, and campus bus storage. So make sure that we have the right direction before we start incorporating any changes or even the status quo with our hybrid electric buses. So we do have, I wanted to mention that we have grant funds. The DCC construction did include funding for 2 zero emission buses. And so that was part of the impetus for this plan as well. Next slide, please. And in the phase 1, we did ask, what is Mountain Line's role in achieving larger community goals? So there's quite a few community goals listed here, really addressing climate change, addressing mode shift, how are people getting to and from locations. And then there's also the goals of the Mountain Line strategic plan and honoring the 2008 voter intent to adopt green technologies. So again, aligning capital investment with goals. Next slide, please. The results of the phase 1 analysis showed that battery electric buses had the lowest greenhouse gas emissions compared to our current hybrid electric buses and combinations of fuel cell and battery electric technologies shown here. Next slide, please, Rhonda. And just to put it into perspective, the difference between our current hybrid emissions and battery electric emissions would be the equivalent of removing 282 cars off the road, and that's sustained year after year, so 282 total every year. And this emissions graph does include the full fleet replacement. So after that 12 years in 2034, when all buses would be replaced with battery electric or fuel cell buses, for example. And I also wanted to point out that as APS, our utility provider, as their sources greened, going towards more renewable energy sources and replacing coal-powered energy sources, that we would likely achieve the 80% reduction by 2050 identified in the climate emergency. Next slide, please. And phase 1 analysis also provided this total cost. So again, we're looking in 2034, what would the total cost be to change over to any of the different technologies. And so we have our current hybrid buses shown here, and the green bar is bus capital, so the actual buses. Red is fuel, so for hybrid, it's diesel fuel. For the battery electric bus, it's electricity. And the blue is maintenance, so just simple maintenance costs, any tools, diagnostics that are required to go with that. And then purple is infrastructure. And you can see for our hybrid buses, no infrastructure is required because we're already set up to have hybrid buses. We don't need to invest in anything new. However, with battery electric buses, there's quite a bit of infrastructure, charging infrastructure. I'll go into this in the phase 2, but quite a bit new things that we would need to add to support battery electric buses. And you can see the totals on the top of each of the bars, and then the incremental cost over that baseline hybrid at the bottom of the screen. So you can see that the results showed that battery electric buses had the lowest incremental cost compared with hybrid buses. But any change will incur cost. Climate action is not cheap. And beyond the 2 grant-funded buses that I mentioned earlier, these costs are not funded by the current financial plan or by our current transit tax. Staff do anticipate offsetting these incremental costs with grants and partnerships. And if we can fully realize grants, partnerships, and a few other items that I'll mention in phase 2, that we believe the costs can be similar to our current hybrid. So we can take that $19.27 million delta and ideally eliminate that if we can fully realize all of these partnerships, changes, and grants. And now I'm just going to briefly show you, I'm going to break out the costs shown on this slide into one-time costs and reoccurring costs. So next slide, please, Rhonda. And so these are one-time costs. So it's infrastructure, charging infrastructure, or new buses, bus capital. And one-time costs is the majority of the total cost. So it's about 2/3 of that total cost. And again, this is over the 12-year replacement cycle. So we're looking at basically at 2034 when all of our buses would be switched over. And this slide, all of these costs are generally funded at an 80% federal share. And the next slide, please, Rhonda. It shows reoccurring costs. And that would be fuel, which is charging for our battery electric buses, or diesel for our current hybrid buses. So fuel and maintenance. So maintaining our buses in a state of good repair. And again, this is over the 12-year period. So it's a little confusing that it's reoccurring costs, but we're looking at 2034, looking back in history to now, over that transition period. And reoccurring costs are only about 1/3 of the total costs, but they're generally funded at a lower federal share, about 50%. And so we are looking, between those two slides, those are about equal for local share. It's kind of interesting, at about 7 to 8 million in total cost for the battery electric buses. And next slide, please, Rhonda. And so with the results showing that battery electric buses had lower emissions and a lower incremental cost than our current hybrid electric bus, the board did approve at the June board meeting to allow Mountain Line to plan for battery electric buses and create a roadmap for electrification to understand all of the changes that would be necessary over the complete transition. But this is not a 100% commitment. Again, this is unfunded. And we do see the 2 buses coming in the next couple of years, the 2 electric buses, battery electric buses now decided, as a real-time test to allow us to see how they work, see if this is best for our system, all the changes that are required. We would be phasing in infrastructure just to accommodate those first 2 buses, not the full infrastructure, which I'll touch on in phase 2 shortly, but really test in real time electric buses and then reevaluate. And as we go on, implementation will be bus by bus and project by project. So I'm going to pause briefly here for any questions about phase 1 that you might have.
Great, thank you, Busy. Comments or questions from board members? Go to Adam.
Thank you, Chair, and thank you, Busy, for the presentation. Very interesting, very exciting, very costly. And, it's funny, being an advocate for climate and climate change, initiatives, I'm torn because on the one hand, I think we should do this. I think we need to plan for it. And I think our DCC needs to, proactively prepare for it rather than retroactively, implement something like this in the future. So I'm glad we're having this conversation, and I'm grateful for the board's past efforts leading us to this point. Chair and team, my thought is, that mode shift that you talked about, Busy, is my top priority personally, and trying to make our buses, as regular as we can, every 15 minutes, or whatever it is, to get that people out of their cars. I know that we can juggle multiple things at once, and I support us doing that, but that is my top priority is increasing the frequencies to allow for that mode shift. Because what good is an electric bus if it's only utilized, at a small percentage of the population? And so I know we can juggle multiple things. So I just wanted to air that out and just let you know where I'm coming from with that. Again, thinking about the DCC, I think it's important that we implement infrastructure so that we don't have to do that in the future. And yeah, my only other comment, Chair and Busy, is in regards to, I know that at certain hours, California is basically giving us electricity for free. And if there's any way to harness that or utilize that with the 2 buses to offset some of the cost, I don't know how that works. I don't know how realistic that is, but just a thought. Just those are my thoughts and concerns. Thank you.
Thank you. Other comments?
I have a question.
Go ahead, Miranda.
I am very excited to hear this update. I'm wondering, is the funding secure for the infrastructure on the first 2 buses?
It is, we do not have funding for the charging infrastructure to support those first 2 buses, but the staff will be bringing to the board next month a request to submit a grant for the low and no emissions program through the Federal Transit Administration. And they do have an even better cost share ratio of 90% for the federal share on any infrastructure. So we do anticipate, we are looking for ways to support those first 2 electric buses.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you. Other comments? I guess my comments are more of a, and I want to acknowledge what Adam said about frequency. And of course, increasing frequency is an additional investment. But then as we invest, trying to balance the rate at which we increase frequency against funding that's available. And then how do you kind of reconcile the fact that, ideally we would be increasing frequency with battery operated buses. I mean, that'd be ideal because, you're doing it, you're going in the right direction, but I guess I understand we may not be able to achieve both at the same time. And so how do we then kind of balance those 2 directions out? I guess, and maybe with the change in administrations, we might get some changes of FTA funding just based on what's happening in the federal level as of half an hour today. So that might be something to look forward to in the future. At the same time, we're also looking at how do we then create that value proposition for local questions with regard to taxpayer funded assistance, et cetera. So again, a lot of different moving parts here that I think are important to keep on the radar.
Absolutely. Chair Pruitt, if I can just address that briefly, that staff do believe that there's an abundance of grants and partnership opportunities available for the electrification that we're really excited about, that hopefully we can fully realize them and have that the costs be equal to what we're paying currently with hybrid electric buses. But absolutely, completely agree that frequency is top priority. That's absolutely what we want to see.
I'm busy. Chair, if I could jump in. Sure. I think that's a really good point. I think that, I've gone to a couple national conventions for elected officials, and there's a lot of talk and buzz around electrifying public transportation. And so I think that I've always been impressed by this group's ability to be ahead of the curve and find that funding. I don't know who's the one at the team that's doing that, but whoever you are, you're doing a great job at tracking down that federal funding opportunity. So I think you're onto something with this, and I think you're right. We could leverage partnership and funding at the federal level to see this through, and maybe this will help. If we have a future bond initiative, for the public's buy-in to see that we are pushing that climate agenda while also working on frequency, because that is a big value to a lot of our residents. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's see.
And I do have a few more slides in this presentation.
Please go ahead, proceed, Busy. I'm sorry, go ahead.
Thank you so much. And so that's just wrapping up phase 1. So we now know that battery electric buses is the direction we should be planning for. And so staff and CTE have completed the implementation plan. It is available for review on our website. And as battery electric buses will touch almost every aspect of Mountain Line services and, back of the house and front of the house services that we need a plan to cover every aspect. And so it's a very comprehensive plan. Here's just a few of the topics that are included in the implementation plan. And I will just be highlighting in the next few slides, 2 main points. But before I move on, I did want to touch on a question that came up at the TAC meeting about solar panels. So we're talking about electricity and using APS electricity for charging our buses. And if there's an opportunity to use solar panels to offset the APS energy sources. And in the resiliency portion of the implementation plan, we did look at solar panels. The footprint that would be required for the solar panels would be pretty gigantic. And even with a very large solar array, it would only offset a very small portion of the electric needs for our buses. The Downtown Connection Center is looking at solar panels as part of the facility. But again, those solar panels would probably generate just enough to cover the facility alone and not any additional for the buses. So again, looking at opportunities, but it would any solar array that we might have, even a very large one, would be a very small percentage of the energy needed to charge buses. Awesome. So next slide, please, Rhonda. I wanted to highlight 2 big points in the implementation plan. The first is the rate structure and electrical costs. So again, this is over the full fleet transition. So you can see first couple buses coming on in 2023, and then having all 29 buses needing to be charged by 2034. And within this graph, the green portion is the actual cost of energy. The purple, orange, and blue, which is the vast majority, 81% of the costs that we're seeing here, is the peak demand costs. We are looking at on-route charging of our buses that gives us more flexibility in our servicing. There'll also be overnight charging, but the majority of charge will be throughout the day whenever they come back into the Downtown Connection Center. And without any rate changes, this is just not affordable. Again, unfunded plan. We have a plan, which is great, but we can't currently fund it at the rate structure that APS currently has for us. The implementation plan did identify that if we can reduce peak demand charges by 30%, fuel costs will be equal to current hybrid electric buses, which we were averaging about $3 per gallon. And so we do see, again, if we can fully realize some partnerships with APS and with the Arizona Corporation Commission on rate changes, that we can see that incremental cost be completely reduced. And again, making it very affordable, that's within our financial plan. So I just really want to emphasize that changing the rate structure is a very high priority identified from this plan, and I think exemplified by this graph here.
Okay.
Next slide, please. And the ZEB plan identified many examples of places across the country that have rate structures that can support electric buses. So it could be, very specific to electric buses and not for the general public. So there's, quite a few examples listed here. Any changes in rate structure does require the Arizona Corporation Commission to approve that. And there's plenty of examples to choose from. And, the utility companies definitely stand to profit with electrification of our buses and with any vehicles in general. And so we have seen examples across the country where profit can still be achieved with rate structures that can support battery electric buses. But it is ultimately the ACC decision. And the second point I want to emphasize, next slide please, Rhonda, is infrastructure required to charge our buses. We touched on this a little earlier in the phase one, but I love this picture because I am not completely fluent in this, so I rely on this a lot, but there's a lot of components that are required to charge a bus. So we're looking at overhead pantograph chargers for a bus, and at the Downtown Connection Center at full fleet transition, we are looking at 8 pantograph chargers, and that does require multiples of the DC charger, of the switch gear, some transformers. So we're looking at a lot of charging infrastructure required. And we are looking at this equipment at the Downtown Connection Center, Caspar headquarters here, and at the future campus bus storage facility. And as I mentioned earlier, the phased implementation of infrastructure will be accommodated as buses come online. So we'll have the first 2 buses. We are looking at having 2 chargers to support those 2 buses, and then phasing that infrastructure as we continue to replace buses with battery electric buses, if that's the direction we want to go after the real-time test. And the DCC is being designed to accommodate the full footprint of battery electrification. So all of this infrastructure pictured here in the multiples, we are looking at setting aside that footprint so we can accommodate full electrification. But again, bus by bus implementation, and we'll see how it goes with the first 2 buses. Next slide, please. And there's many examples of infrastructure partnerships across the country that we can model. And there is already at least one investment payback model that APS has. So any APS side electric upgrades can be paid back over a 6-year period. And that's something they already have in place. However, 6 years usually accommodates a personal vehicle. Our buses run for somewhere between 12 and 15 years. So we would, be looking to APS to increase that payback period. That's just one example of a partnership to cover infrastructure costs. And again, if partnerships can be fully realized, we do think that the delta can be reduced to what we're currently paying today for hybrid electric buses. And I just have one more slide and that'll complete my presentation. I'm glad to answer any questions. I wanted to bring up an effort that is outside of the ZEB plan that staff has been participating in. So Arizona is conducting a statewide electrification plan currently. The 3rd and final workshop is coming up in February. The recommendations and results of this ZEB plan has been provided to that effort. They've welcomed the feedback. I've participated in subcommittee meetings, and I look forward in this 3rd and final workshop to see if some of these recommendations are in their plan and in their recommendations. That plan will be presented to the Arizona Corporation Commission upon completion. And again, ACC ultimately decides what rate changes to implement, if any. But we are looking at any efforts to propose support rate changes should be in step with that AZTE. And that's it. I'd be happy to answer any questions, and I am looking for approval of this plan from the board. Thank you.
Okay. Thanks, Busy. Questions or comments? This is a good presentation. Thank you.
Chair, I do have another question.
Good.
I talk a lot. I'm sorry, everybody in advance.
That's what we're here for.
I'm trying to practice sitting back more and letting other people speak first, but don't want to miss my opportunity as well. Anyways, Busy, yes, excellent presentation. So I'm just a little confused in terms of the rate structure you talked about. I know that's set by the ACC. Are you saying that we're hoping that the rate goes down? And has that ever happened? Because from my understanding, that rate keeps going up. I might be wrong.
So there are examples, I'm not sure in Arizona, but there's examples across the country of rate changes to support electrification. And sometimes it's as isolated to public vehicles, buses, school buses, trash trucks, something like that, that there's a special rate for public agencies versus private citizens with their personal automobiles. So we are looking at hopefully the AZTE, that statewide plan might have some recommendations. We're looking to support any recommendations. And I do think that there's a host of examples across the country with other utility rate providers that could be replicated here.
Okay, that's helpful. And I'm wondering to my colleague on the city council, Miranda Sweet, if I wonder if council should, make this one of our state priorities to help advocate that rate goes down for public utility of, the cost. Would that be of value to our effort here or our concern?
Yeah, I think so. And maybe we could put it into the cap or the environmental arena or include it in something that's already there. But yeah, I do agree. This should definitely be in there.
Go ahead, Chair.
I was going to ask, at the same time as we're doing that, I know that the state association, I'm sure, is tracking this as well with the transit providers. And so kind of wanting to see what their efforts are with regard to advocacy efforts at ACC on this issue.
Yes, thank you, Chair. We have met with ASTA, the state transit advisory group, and they are in full support of this. There are quite a few agencies who are looking at electrification. So far, Tucson is the only agency who has an electric bus. But definitely talk to Grand Canyon, talk to Lake Havasu. I know that Phoenix is looking at it, Tucson, Sedona, of course. So definitely looking to statewide transit agencies and our advocacy group ASTA to help lead that effort and have a unified message on what we are desiring for rate structure changes.
That's great. If there is something that the city can do to help support this, let us know. But that's great to hear. And that was my other question, was whether agencies or towns are doing this. And yeah, I'm glad to hear that. There are some, but not that many yet. Thank you.
Thank you.
Are the buses at the Canyon, are they electric?
They are not. Nope. Only Tucson has electric buses currently in the state.
Okay. Adam, did you have another point to make, Adam? You good? Yeah, definitely want to make sure that we're connecting on this issue for the reasons you stated. So, so any other questions or comments from the board? Okay, so the recommended action is to adopt the zero emission bus transition plan that's presented today, but of course we can continue to track all the advocacy related to this. Did we see some changes at ACC in terms of their membership that might be influencing them in a different direction? I don't remember. I know that they've been tracking this as well, but I'm not sure.
Yeah, great question. I do remember the candidates, a few candidates that were elected into the office did seem supportive. I have not heard any petitions within the ACC to change the rate structure. I don't know if there's anything to add to that.
Okay, thanks. Okay, so go ahead.
Chairman Drew, this is Scott Holcomb.
Good, Scott.
I've been appearing in front of the ACC on an unrelated matter, and the makeup of the board, I think, has taken a definite step more towards rate regulation and customer, including protecting the customer, not just play and. So I think it has definitely moved in that direction.
Good. Yeah, we might see something where the planets are come in alignment between state, local, federal agencies, and we can get some movement on this. But thank you, Scott. Okay, so at this time, the chair will consider a motion to consider the adoption of the ZEB. Is there a motion to that effect?
I so move.
Thank you, Miranda. So the motion is made to adopt the zero emissions bus transition plan. Is there a second to Miranda's motion?
I second.
Second by Dan. Is there any other discussion? Okay, Hearing none. All those in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed? Hearing none, the motion carries. Thanks, Busy. Good information. Appreciate it.
Thank you.
So we are at the next in our agenda. We take this opportunity for progress reports. I'm going to go back to staff. Heather, are there any progress reports you want to call to our attention? Or because I know that Dana Coley has to leave at 11:45, so we just want to time it. You're muted.
I don't think we needed to pull any progress reports specifically. I do want to talk a little bit about current events. So I would just check with board members to see if they wanted any progress report comments or clarifications before we move on to current events.
Okay. So board members, any progress reports you would like us to pull out for a quick update on? Otherwise, we have information in your packet. And we can also say, we can bring it back to a future board meeting to say, I'd like to talk about this a bit more too. So.
When I was going through the reports, the one thing that stood out was just the budget. And I'd just like to learn more about the process and our role as a board with the budget. So whenever that's appropriate, Chair.
Thank you, Adam. And we will be talking about that towards the end of the agenda when we talk about new member orientation and roles and responsibilities, et cetera. So we'll call on staff to do that at the end. Okay. 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 With that, why don't you, Heather, go over those couple of current events that you wanted to bring to our attention?
Sure. So the current events were sent out this morning, so I encourage you to read those. Let me know if you have any questions or if you'd like additional information put on the agenda. I wanted to quickly add a couple of things that didn't get captured. Under the operations section, we talk about Mountain Express and that launch. I wanted to let you know, as our board members, that we as staff members have been talking about the prediction of more snow this weekend. And based on a prior snow event that brought a lot of folks up to the ski resort, and with the chain requirement, those folks turned to the bus. And we are very concerned about crowded conditions on our vehicles. And so we have communicated to Arizona Snow Bowl that we will be limiting capacity on the vehicles as part of our effort to support social distancing and slow the spread. So wanted to make you aware of that. Again, we're working with Snow Bowl on how to communicate that and prepare people for that potential limitation on the vehicles, but wanted to share that with you. Wanted to recognize Estella Hollander, specifically call her out and recognize her. Director Shimoni, you made comment about our team that pursues grants. A lot of that is our planning division and Estella and her hard work. And there are several grant announcements that include Estella's name in the progress report, current events, but she also received her transportation demand management certification. She's one of the first in the nation to achieve that certification. So want to congratulate her on that.
Good deal.
And then one other really quick, did not get to capture. We had 2 of our 6 articulated buses down due to a repair issue. They've been down for several months because of COVID. New Flyer would not send a technician to our location. Staff did some research, worked with New Flyer, bought the tool necessary to make the repair. And within 30 minutes of receiving that tool, both vehicles were back on the road. So I want to congratulate and recognize our mechanic team. They really apply ingenuity to solutions, and they're willing to go learn new tools and techniques and keep us efficient with our maintenance programs, reducing cost and our downtime. So wanted to also offer that recognition.
Thank you.
And then lastly, to follow up, sorry, Chair Peru, on your comment, we do have intentions to meet with each of our new incoming board members to do an orientation to Mountain Line and talk more about your role as a board member. That will include Director Shimoni, as you requested, more information on our budget process and what role the board plays. And then we also, as a team here at Mountain Line, have set up a schedule of different topics that we're going to bring to the board meetings themselves as overall education of kind of our policies, procedures, why we do what we do, how we get funding, and things like that. Just because we do have so many new board members, we thought that was a good effort. So with that, that's all my current events, but I'd be happy to answer any questions or address remarks.
Thank you, Heather. We are slated to go into an executive session, but before we do go, I'm going to ask for if any comments or questions from board members at this time. Okay. Before we go into exec session, I do want to acknowledge the staff, especially those who have been attempting to manage through COVID. We have a number of team members that in the past have been impacted by COVID. We have some board members, or excuse me, some staff members that are currently coping with COVID impacts. And unfortunately, we've had staff members that have experienced personal loss as a result of COVID. And so our thoughts and prayers go to our staff for their continued health, and for those who have lost loved ones, our condolences and blessings to you and your family. So with that, we are going to go into executive session. And so Rhonda, Scott, what's the best way to do that?
This is Rhonda. We just need a motion to move into executive session and then a vote.
Okay.
And it'll take a couple minutes for John to reassign you into the executive session breakout room.
Okay.
So if you can just bear with us, on your screen, you will receive a little message to click on to admit you, I believe, into or to accept entrance into the breakout room. And if you click on that when needed, then you'll be in there for the executive session.
Thank you. And so at this time, the board will consider a motion to convene into an executive session pursuant to ARS 38-431.03A, 3, and 4 for the following purpose: discussion and consultation with Mountain Line's attorney and for legal advice with Mountain Line's attorney and designated representative regarding Mr. P versus NAPTA litigations. And so is there a motion to retire into executive session?
So moved.
We have a motion made by Adam. Is there a second to the motion?
Second.
We have a second by Dan. And so any other discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor of retiring into executive session, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Motion carries. Okay, so we'll be watching the screen and we'll be magically transported into the next room. Beam me up, Scotty.
You don't know how many times I heard that as a kid.
That's right.
I was growing up during the Star Trek, too.
Yeah, for the Trekkies of the world. So.
In 3,
3,
2, 1, hit it.
Okay.
Steve, as we're waiting, I didn't see each session on our agenda. Is it something that was added later?
The agenda that came out most recently was added.
Okay.
So the tail end of the agenda. So
Looking at an old agenda then. Okay.
Yep. So I think we are. There we go.
There we go.
All right, see you soon.
So you don't, but, oh, sorry, I did it. Let me add training.
Oh, okay. No, that's fine.
And you don't have to join.
Okay, great. Thank you.
So I'll step out.
Okay. And I'll come get you when
Okay, I think we are all here. And so are there any other items on the agenda that board members wish to comment or take note of? Okay, with that, I will go ahead and adjourn. Actually, it may go back to Scott. Scott, do I need to get an emotion to get out of exec session?
No, you just announced that you're back out of the exec session.
I thought so. Okay. If not, I think we are done with the meeting for today. Appreciate everyone and welcome to our new board members, Miranda and to Adam. And then of course, next meeting, we'll have our county partners with us. So everyone be safe, be healthy. And to Heather and the staff, keep doing what you're doing.
Thank you. Thanks for everyone's
Everybody.
time.
See y'all
Thank you.
later. Be safe.
Thank you, Scott.
You're welcome. Thank you all. And keep me apprised if anything more happens with it.
Yeah, we'll do that.